Hey, this is Brian with the Roanoke Valley Libertarians. Last night we had the LNC Region 5 representative Susan Hogarth come and speak to us via Zoom, and she discussed what exactly she does. She talked a little bit about the upcoming Libertarian National Convention in Reno, Nevada, and she had some other things to say. So please sit back, grab your ice water, your hot coffee, or your favorite adult beverage, and listen to Susan Hogarth talk about what she does as the LNC Region 5 representative.
All right, so now we're recording. We're joined here today by Susan Hogarth. She's the LNC 5th Region representative. Like I was telling you earlier, what I would like you to discuss is we've had Dr. Lark, the man you replaced, and I've never asked him, what do you do? So, and what can we do to help you make your job easier, And because I know you've got several states throughout this region. So if you can, just first, we'll let you just introduce yourself and how you got to the party and so forth.
Okay, so I am Susan Hogarth. I live in central North Carolina right now. Been here for 25 years, I guess. 27 years. Wow. Sorry. I've been a member of the Libertarian Party the entire time I've been here. I was introduced to the party in 1988 when Ron Paul ran for president, and a friend dragged me to see this candidate, never heard of the party, and there was a room with 15 people in it and this amazing guy. And from that moment on, I was there. I was Libertarian. When I came to North Carolina, I got involved, and this is what a lot of people do, and it's good. Got involved with the county party, got involved with the state party a little bit, national was not on my radar. And that was good. That's a healthy thing, I think, for libertarians to be focused on their county affiliate, their state party, what they can do as locally as possible. But then, I started hanging out with some people who had been, on the committee, or I went to my first national convention in 2004, and that was in Atlanta. Drove down with some other people, and I remember a couple of things, but one, it was in this hotel with I don't know if you've been in Atlanta, but there's this big hotel downtown with an inner courtyard, so you can step out of your room and you can look down into the lobby, and it triggered my fear of heights, something awful. That, and then Michael Bednarik was galvanizing. He was amazing. And so they had this really cool I see you nodding. It was an amazing thing to be a part of. So that was a really good first national convention, because no one expected Michael to win. But the other two had very solid constituencies that wouldn't, and he did such an amazing job in the debate. And he was a great candidate, worked on his campaign. I became a lot more involved at the state level, took, jobs on the state board, like newsletter editor. I was county chair a couple of times in my county, and most recently I was state chair. Ran for office 3 or 4 or 5 times. I can't, state senate, state house, county commission. Have worked on other people's campaigns. The usual sort of activist resume. Organized protests at the state house. When they did institute a gay marriage ban here briefly, a bunch of us went to the courthouse and burned our marriage licenses, or to the state capitol. That was fun because I couldn't even find mine, so I had to just fake one, and then we burned it. So that kind of thing, the usual activist stuff. I met Dr. Lark when I started going to state conventions, and he would come down to those, as the regional rep. And I got a little bit of the idea of the structure of the national party and the regions and how that works. But I think a lot of people don't have a really good idea of what the national party does. And like I said, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But the national party has representation from all around the country. So the national party is governed by a board of, I think it's 17 people. They're the officers, chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. And then I think 5 at-large members, and then a set of regional representatives and regional alternates who cover for them when they're not there and vote for them. And there are 8 regions currently. So the regional system within the LP is a little strange. It's based on representation. So any number of states that gets together and claim or has 10% of the bylaw sustaining members of the national party can be a region, and then they get a representative. If they have 20% of the bylaw sustaining members of the national party, they can get 2 reps and 2 alternates. That's what's called a super region. We don't have any of that right now. So it runs the gamut. So like region 1 has maybe 10 states. It's roughly the Southwest and the Middle West and Alaska and Hawaii. It's a massive kind of, because it's a lot of small states. Each state gets a number of delegates at the national convention proportionate to their size within the party. So, but conversely, region, I guess it's 2, is California. They have 10%, more than 10% of the national membership. So that one state is an entire region. Region 5, which I love, is basically the mid-Atlantic, from Pennsylvania down through Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, West Virginia, and the Carolinas. We just re-added South Carolina in the last term, or a couple of years ago. So at every national convention, the states can reorganize into different regions. They can realign. So there's probably going to be some of that this time, because there's a big shift in the party. I don't know how else to put it. There's a lot of new people in the party. A lot of things are happening. A lot of people have their backs up. And so there may well be some realignment. I don't know how aware of all that stuff you guys are, like what happened in Pennsylvania and Delaware and that kind of thing.
Yeah, we've seen stuff through Facebook, and obviously that's always the great place to go to get updates on, because you get to read all the comments, and then this turns into a cesspool. But
that's the problem. There's usually like a dozen people who that seems to be their vocation, is arguing online, and I get it, because that's how I sharpened my libertarian claws, back in the Usenet days, having these great arguments online. But they were, very ideological. Now there's a lot of, and maybe it's always been this way, there's a lot of, like, frankly, factional type stuff. So the next couple of years will be very interesting. So once these regions decide on who their representative is going to be, decide on what states will be in their region, and theoretically region 5 could keep the same states, or we could add a state, or we could add several states and become a super region where we would have 2 representatives, and each region has a different governing document, on how the states relate to each other, the state parties. Region 5 is very loose, so each state party does its own thing. That's always the case. But when the regions form at each convention, each national convention. And right after they form, the delegates from those states get together and select a representative and an alternate. So that's what'll happen. And that will happen this year, the first full business day of the convention. How many of you are going to national convention?
Right now, I only know of one.
Okay.
Here.
So I hope that he or she goes on Thursday, because there'll be a full day of training sessions.
Yeah, I think my flight lands on Thursday, and then I'm leaving Monday.
Okay, great. Well, I hope you can make some of the training sessions on Thursday. And it sounds like you'll have a nice, relaxing Sunday evening. Thursday and Friday, well, Friday, the early business of the convention is approving the credentialing report. And I'm at this time the chair of the credentials committee. So basically all the delegates and alternates that are presented by each state are checked. Their credentials are checked by the committee, and then presented at the beginning. I don't know how many of you have been to a national convention, but the first order of business after approval of the agenda is the credentialing. And normally it's a pretty straightforward. The credentialing team stands up and says, we have this many delegates in attendance and this many alternates, and here's what a quorum is. And, they just spout off some numbers and they present that, and the body says, sounds good, need more coffee. And it's boring. Well, last convention, we had the hybrid in-person and online convention. And that kind of messed with our credentialing process, because everyone, as far as I could tell, wanted to have the hybrid convention. But as we always do, we argued about how we should make that happen. So that took up a lot of our time. This time, there is a lot of sort of churn in the party. So there's probably going to be some challenges at the credentialing stage. So at any rate, that'll happen on Friday in the morning. There'll be other business during the day on Friday. And then Friday in the afternoon or evening, each region will get together in a separate space and choose their regional representatives and alternate. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's how that works. The chairs are the ones who decide who's going to be in what region. So the chairs of Region 5 will decide if they want to continue in Region 5, or if, some states may want to go off into another region. And the regions don't have to be geographically coherent. They can be, we could add Alaska if they wanted to be part of our region. That makes it hard for the representative to get to their state convention, but it's certainly not a problem. So that's probably more than you wanted to know about the region system. But what those representatives do during the year is propose and approve a budget for the national party, oversee ballot access, oversee the staff. And by oversee, I mean, we have a committee, like a staffing committee. We have fundraising committees, things like that. So, we don't micromanage. The national party is blessed with some amazing people on our staff, and they run the day-to-day operations of the party. But the board is responsible for the overall governance and direction of the party. So what states will get ballot access help, how much, how it's provided, initiatives, overall guidance of messaging, budgeting, and things like that.
Okay. Are you expecting much fight at the national convention? Because you're seeing the stuff like you said, Pennsylvania. Was it New Hampshire had a big blowout? Are we
Delaware? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, are we expect? Because I know I'm talking to one guy, and he was saying that he's afraid that you're going to see a split possibly of some sort. And I just was curious, what's vibe are you getting?
It's really hard to tell. So a lot of times there's so much arguing online and a lot of real rancor, and that's been exacerbated by the pandemic. So what I've noticed is libertarians online, and probably this is the case in any ideological group, will argue. We get together. You guys have probably seen this in your local group. You get together, raise a beer, and all of a sudden you're best buddies,
Right.
So, and I've seen that at national conventions too. Like, it's really hard not to get swept up in that camaraderie. That's why we meet in person. That's why it's important. The pandemic has made that more difficult and more uncomfortable for some people, and that's exacerbated some ideological differences in opinion about what direction the party should go and what strategies it should use and messaging and things like that. So I don't know. I mean, like, I can envision anything from people just getting together and having a great time and, approving the bylaws and the platform changes, which is the biggest business of the off presidential year convention. So the orders of business at the national convention are to review changes to the bylaws proposed by the bylaws committee, review changes to the platform proposed by the platform committee, and elect new officers. So the regional representatives are elected in their regional caucuses, but we elect, the chair and the vice chair and the secretary and treasurer and the at-large members during the convention. And I don't know. I envision everything from like an all-out brawl to like a complete shift in leadership in the party under peaceful conditions. Some people are going to stomp off, I'm sure. I'm actually one of the co-founders of the Radical Caucus, but we're not in this dogfight right now. So we're kind of standing on the sidelines and not sidelines, but we're standing by just like ready to do what the party needs. And that's kind of where I am as a representative too. Like, I might not get elected. I'm not a member of the Mises Caucus, and they've picked up a lot of delegates, it seems. So, especially in places like Pennsylvania. So I may not be reelected. But if I'm not reelected, I'll still be working with the party. I'll probably be doing fundraising calls like I'm doing now. But some people will be upset because they're not comfortable with leadership change, and they will leave. But I think, in a couple of years, things will settle down. Here's what I see. There's a huge influx of new, energetic people with a lot of great ideas and a lot of like super enthusiasm. Some of those people are assholes, because in any group of people, some of them are going to be assholes. And unfortunately, in a situation like the pandemic where we're not getting together frequently in person, those people tend to stand out. So people have gotten very bad ideas about things that are happening, or maybe they're right, who knows? And so there's this tension in the party, and there's also like a left-right tension. And but I've seen stuff like this before. In 2006, which was an off-year convention. So we can have a maximum of 1,050 delegates, and then a bunch of alternates at a convention. The last few presidential conventions, we've had full delegate, like a full house of delegates. And that's super exciting for me, because I was back in the days when if you got 800 people at a convention, even in a presidential year, that was exciting. Well, this is an off-year convention in an expensive to travel to place, and we're going to have competition. Like every state convention that I've seen has had competition for delegate spots where people didn't get selected, and a lot of states didn't even have formal procedures for how to select delegates, because normally people just show up at the state convention and like in North Carolina, you say, hey, who wants to go to Reno, Nevada, and spend hundreds of over $1,000 getting there and staying there, and you might have 5 people raise their hand, and we have 27 or 29 spots. So but now this time we had an election because we had too many people wanting to go. Not too many, that's good. But so we're going to have well over 1,000 people as delegates, and then tons of alternates, and it's going to be a presidential year sized convention in an off year. So it'll be very exciting.
That's good to hear, because our party is in. We have the best, I think, the better ideas, probably the best ideas I'd go with. And
I'm there.
It's just there's just a couple things that I believe we have to do, and we would be extremely successful, But we get so tied up in fighting, it drives me up the wall, And that's what we're seeing right now. And it's like, use that passion, else, help me use it out here, not in here, And,
yeah, and
I'm really happy. This is good news that there are going to be full delegates there.
Oh yeah. There'll probably be a lot of challenges. Some states will probably send 2 delegations. There was a little bit of a big dust up in Delaware. So there was kind of a takeover attempt, and there was internal factionalization in their board, and half the board kicked the other half the board out. And eventually it all got settled through action of the National Committee and the Judicial Committee and the state board itself. And the National Committee is always very hesitant to get involved in state party governance issues. So that was controversial in itself, but that got handled. And we now have a recognized single affiliate in Delaware. But are the other guys going to show up with, because they had their own convention? Or are they going to show up with delegates and ask to be seated? Sure. So it'll be very interesting. I think the Friday morning is going to be pretty interesting.
All right. Do y'all have any questions for?
Yeah, I hope I haven't talked y'all's ears off.
No, you've done exactly what I wanted done. I've never known. Now, do you travel to each state? How often do you contact, for instance, our state chair is Hollywood. So do you keep in contact? Do y'all have constant communication so you can speak on their behalf? I would assume, or how's that work?
So different regions do it differently, and so Region 5 has a representative and an alternate. I'm the rep. The alternate is Otto Dassing from Maryland. And we keep there's a Region 5 Facebook group, which I encourage you to join if you look for it, or I can send a link. That is just for general discussion, but I have just a chat group with the state chairs. So, and if there's some regions have written into their regional agreement that the representative has to vote a certain way according to the wishes of the chairs. Region 5 may choose something like that in the future. I hope not, because my idea of representation is that the state chairs and the people in the states don't have time to follow everything that the National Committee is doing. I barely have time to follow everything the National Committee is doing. It's a lot to keep up with, and it's a lot to think about. And I think that we hire or select a representative to make those choices. But on the other hand, I do want the chairs to be informed. I want all the members to be informed, but everybody has different priorities and only a limited amount of time and energy. But I want the chairs to know what's going on at national. So if there's something important, like midway through this term, we had some issues with the secretary, and the group asked for her to be removed, and that was very controversial, in the party at large. And we made a case was made, lots of documentation was provided, discussion was done. When I talked to the chairs in Region 5, I got replies from absolutely yes, absolutely no. I don't pay attention to that stuff. That was the most common one. I don't, your board, govern your board the way you see fit. Just keep the, resources flowing to the state parties and don't involve us in your squabbles. So I try to keep them informed and ask, what they need and how things are going in their states. We were just talking today, and Holly stepped into the chairship after a period, I guess, where there was a little bit of turmoil, and like the previous chair wasn't at the convention, and so I think she's had a little bit of the new board has had less overlap than is typical.
Right.
So typically a party, a state board will be maybe replace one person, or and someone will move up the ranks to chair, or the same person will be chair for 10 years or something. There's a lot of that in the party, and that's not bad. But sometimes when most of a board is replaced all at once, you lose a lot of institutional memory, and that's not all bad either, but it is hard when you don't know where all the keys are. So I think that's probably happening a little bit in Virginia. You guys would probably know more about that than I would.
Oh yeah, there's some hiccups, but I think really it's been a long time since I'm really excited about Holly and the rest of the committee that have been brought on. So
I am too.
I'm hoping,
Yeah, I did come to. Oh, so you asked if I travel around. I try to make it to the state conventions and sometimes events and things. I still haven't been able to make it to West Virginia. There was a snowstorm last time, and it conflicted with another convention previously. But I try to make it to as many of those as possible. This year I missed Pennsylvania's convention because my own state convention was that same weekend. But I did come up to Virginia, went to Delaware, South Carolina. I was going to go to Maryland because that's my home state, but and of course it's a region. But I had some family issue come up. That was just last weekend. So yeah, but I do go to their events and things like that when I can. Just like Dr. Lark, probably I've not been able to travel as much as he was. And when you ask if I travel a lot, I would say no. I would say not enough, and my husband would say too much. So somewhere in between.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And
but that's why I love the opportunity to talk to people this way. So Thank you.
No, absolutely. And then final thing is, I know we wouldn't. Is there anything that affiliates like ourselves can do to make your job easier, or is it just obviously we're making the 6th district and our different CDs, helping them out, and then that goes up to the state. Is there anything that we do to help you out, or anything of that nature?
So everybody has different opinions about where to play and priorities about where to place resources, but I do encourage every libertarian to become at least a minimal dues paying member of the national party. That gives you more delegates at national convention. It gets people more involved. You'll get more email, and you'll get the newsletters keeping you up to date with stuff National's doing. We're starting some initiatives to help local, state, and local affiliates run candidates better and do events and things like that, and provide materials for those things. I don't know if any of you attended the training sessions last summer.
I didn't. Did you? Okay. No, don't look.
They were done on a regional basis, and the Region 5 one was done in Virginia. It was Virginia Beach. Oh man, it was amazing.
Right.
So much information one weekend. So things like that. So I do encourage people to join the National Party, at least at a minimal level. If you can, I encourage people to pledge monthly. But I'm not going to lie. I would say pledge monthly at your local or state level first. And then if you still want to do more, but I do make calls where I ask people to give money for projects, for ballot access and petitioning and, things like that. So, yeah.
All right. Well, that sounds good. I won't hold you up any longer. Thank you so much for joining us and telling us what you do. And it was nice meeting you. I met you at the convention. I remember I did meet you there. So, all right. So if you're ever in Roanoke, please let me know, and we'll get all together. All right.
I'm looking forward to it.
All
Thanks.
right.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Have a good night.
Good night.
So thank you again to Susan Hogarth for coming and speaking to the Roanoke Valley Libertarians. We meet on the second Wednesday of each month. If you go to rvlp.org or our Facebook page, Roanoke Valley Libertarians, you'll find out who our next guest speaker is. So if you're in the Roanoke Valley area, please swing by and get active, because the party is made up of those that show up. So until next time, my friends, I'm Brian, and I'll see you later.